Cool, going. Okay, starting over. Hello. So, I started replaying Skyrim because I have too many projects and I need something to make my brain just stop speeding. Why return to Skyrim when there are so many better games out there, like Dragon's Dogma 2, Metal Gear Solid, and Killer 7 that I have not yet beaten? I don't think Skyrim is a great game, but I will die on the hill that it is at least a good one. Is the combat good? No. Is the story good? No. Not really. Are the characters engaging? No. But I do have fun playing it. Exploring dungeons is fun, even if the dungeons are just bad combat broken up by baby puzzles. But it's not for the dungeon itself, but for the Skinner box of, will I find a good new enchantment or higher level gear? I understand that this is a Skinner box feeding me small power increases. I don't care. The other reason why I still enjoy Skyrim is just wandering through the open world. The random encounters are interesting enough, and the main thing I love doing is climbing mountains. It's just something fun about climbing up to places that I'm obviously not meant to be by slamming my head into a wall repeatedly while shimmying back and forth. This isn't a joke. I love doing this. Potion making's fun enough too, as you can cover different combinations, even if I never drink any of the potions I make. And smithing hundreds of leather gloves can also sometimes be fun. Before I started replaying it, I had only ever played it on Xbox 360, unpatched, no DLC, no mods. And now returning to Enhanced Edition, I've been surprised to see just how good the art direction this game always was. It's beautiful and the sunsets are gorgeous. Sadly, even Skyrim is no longer enough to slow my brain down. I very quickly started noticing things I'd never given a second thought to before this playthrough. When I started, of course I escaped with the Imperial because that's the only way to get access to the Forge in Riverwood. Also, because the Stormcloaks are racist pigs. Of course, however, I did kill the Imperial Torturer because fuck him specifically. I'd always sided with the Imperials because they weren't racist, but they do use torture. I started thinking to myself, wait, the Civil War plot line was stupid, right? Why do I worry I'm going to start having opinions on this? And then it became, wait, why does this feel relevant today? Really, what is up with the Nords and the Forsworn and all of that? Skyrim seems to be quite different than the past that the Stormcloaks and Forsworn seem to be clinging on to. Do either of them actually have a valid point? And as I wandered, refusing to do any quests, I started thinking to myself, why can't you marry Khajiits? No, really, it's kind of weird that you can't. I mean, I'm not a furry, I just noticed this. Also, where are all the masculine monsters? Excluding the undead, which can come in bearded feminine varieties too. What masculine monsters are there? I'll hear no claims that Frost or Shock Atronachs are masculine. The Giants and Dremora are the only examples of masculine-only enemies. You could try to make the case that Dwarven automatons are masculine-coded as well, and sure, I'll let you have that one. But masculinity seems to just be treated like the default, as if masculinity itself were just neuter. Femininity is an identifiable thing, but masculinity isn't. It's not sexy, it's not clever. If it's anything, it's just strength. So why did the Nords leave it all behind? Now, before you go thinking this is a lore video, it's not. I'm only interested in themes, and I'm not going to read a book within a video game. You're not George Orwell. You don't get to make me read a book while I'm doing something else. A lot of the Nords call themselves the true sons and daughters of Skyrim, This is a racist dog whistle. The Empire's takeover of Skyrim has potential to be a fascinating topic, but instead it's just join one side and kill enemy. There isn't any political intrigue to these missions. It does add some flavor text to the world, but the quests aren't really any different from each other. While this could be an interesting choice of who to support, instead the choice is racists or settlers. Wait, I take back my critique. American jokes aside, there is functionally no difference between picking either side. It isn't underdog using guerrilla warfare versus strong military. It's no different than clearing a bandit camp. But let's just humor these Nords for a second. Their ruins are all throughout Skyrim. For most people, clearing out Bleak Falls Barrow is the first dungeon you'll encounter, and all the Draugr carry ancient Nord weapons, so it lets you know they're not lying about having a history here. Why is it abandoned? The Companions allow non-Nords, but the Circle are only Nords, and Aela the Huntress is the only person in the game who is even wearing ancient Nord armor. In Oblivion, there were zombies. They were just your average undead, but here Draugr are all Nords. They are in abandoned structures, and there are a lot of them. There are way greater number of Draugr than Oblivion had zombies, and then Olaf One-Eye is a Draugr, but he's also in Sovereign Guard, so I don't know what's up with that. And I'm also confused by the Forsworn, as sometimes they're passive, but most of the time they're just outright hostile. They're often found within ancient Nord structures, but they themselves are threatens. The Forsworn also appear to be clinging to a lost mode of worship, practicing an old religion, working with hag ravens. They are not too different from the Stormcloaks going to war over the loss of their worship of Talos. Bumping into a Forsworn in the wild makes them seem like some tribe trying to cling to whatever is left of their beliefs, whereas meeting them in Markarth makes them seem not like a tribe, but an old mob boss trying to rebuild an empire. But perhaps both Stormcloaks and Forsworn are just both cosplaying their lost culture in response to oppression. But I wouldn't say it's wrong to lean back on your cultural identity in the face of oppression. It's what parts of that identity that you emphasize that matter. So what does this game's politics say? Well, the Empire capitulates to the fascist ethno-state of the Thalmor. It's saying quite a bit, actually. Is it intentionally saying what it's saying? That's a disingenuous question, and irrelevant to the topic. Death of the author means, what does the text say? And this is what the text says. An invasive force will make the violent xenophobic militias appear justified if they are the means of resistance. It will appear to validate all their other beliefs. If extremists are providing you protection, it'll make people sympathize with your difficult beliefs. Russia's invasion of Ukraine was only ever going to serve to make the Nazi militias appear correct in their xenophobia. If the people you need to rely on to live are bad people, them being bad people is not going to be your biggest concern. While Ulfric is a racist piece of shit, the Empire is working with a much worse piece of shit, the Thalmor. When I started writing this section, I believed the Stormcloaks were in the wrong, and now I'm not sure. The Stormcloaks could be seen as moral in their rejection of the Empire working with the Thalmor, as the Thalmor sends their secret police to capture and kill people who have faith in Talos. The Empire, by making deals with the Thalmor, loses any claims of morality. The Stormcloaks are not good, but they are resisting an occupying force, and that makes it harder for me to reject them. Though, I think it would be fair to at least put some blame on the Stormcloaks for starting this war because of Ulfric, because this is going to weaken the entire region of Skyrim and make the Thalmor have an easier time sweeping through after this resolves for either side. So, while Skyrim does have sexy trees, sexy fire demons, sexy ghosts, and by this I just mean they have boobs for some reason, I think it would also be important to look over other depictions of femininity, such as the Hag Ravens, or the Night Mother. I think it would be fair to say that Skyrim views these as a twisting of femininity, and that these are like a negative to them. But that's just old and balding and bird, and then evil and corpse and child killer. I hope that doesn't get me flagged. Male werewolves are sorry and regret what they did to their family. Female vampires, for example, wear sexy dresses and seduce men into killing their wives and children. It's their femininity that they use to manipulate men. Male vampires, on the other hand, it's just a guy in robes. Vampire armor on a female gets a boob window. It's just regular armor for men. While I think it would be fair to attach motherhood to Skyrim's view of femininity, I cannot say the same about being a father. Femininity also appears to be largely appearance-based and also tied into seduction. I'm not going to use the word sexuality because it's only that to the player and not really within the game itself. I don't blame Skyrim for this, because this is at least how I've seen things represented culturally for my whole life. Skirts are feminine. Jeans and t-shirts are neuter. Dresses are feminine. Business suits are neuter. You can argue that it's because female clothing needs to be designed around a different body shape, whereas male clothing tends to be loose, but that's just too simple of an answer. So, to define masculinity, I've got a question for the audience. What's a male piece of clothing? If you answered a Speedo or a jockstrap, then basically all you're saying is that the only thing that is male is the dick and balls, and even beyond the transphobia of that answer, it doesn't sit correct with me. Queer and trans people have written about how masculinity is viewed as the most desirable, and to shirk it off is shameful, and that's why women can wear men's clothes, but not vice versa. And that is why trans men don't get as much hate. They still get a lot of hate, as trans women do. I think it's a fair assessment, but it also feels too thought out for a lot of these people's bigotry. I think it partially just comes from homophobia as well, and the fear of losing one's own masculinity, the idea that homosexuality is less masculine than heterosexuality. And the idea that your masculinity could be taken from you is why it often gets called fragile. Now, a trans man will probably have a different answer to what masculinity is than a cis man, and someone who isn't from the West is going to have a different answer entirely. But for the sake of this video, since it's where it comes from, I'm interested in what people assume Western cis masculinity is. I forgot a snap in the previous one. When I mentioned to a friend that the Flame Atronach was feminine-coded, they said, well, the Frost one is male-coded. And sure, I guess icebergs would be men if they had arms and legs. I'm not wanting to come across as no sexy things in video games. I want equal opportunity sexy in video games, and Capcom's done a better job than most with this, I guess. I mean, people are horny for every Street Fighter character, and pretty much every Resident Evil character too. You might say, well, all the adult men in Skyrim are extremely fit, which, yeah, sure, I can believe that for the farm workers, but the nobles? Really? I don't buy it. I imagine most people who are attracted to men wouldn't say that an unclothed Skyrim character is sexy. Again, what is masculinity? Right-wing grifters who get arrested for sex crimes will give you a different definition than a gay leftist. And when I was religious, I was told by someone that if you wanted to know what masculinity looked like, look at Jesus. That's probably the best answer I've ever got from a Christian about masculinity. Masculinity looks like property damage of small business owners who take advantage of immigrants, letting your homies cuddle with you when they're wine drunk, and getting killed by the state. This is a Skyrim video essay. Perhaps for Skyrim's opinion on masculinity, we look to prominent figures to see what is revered. General Tullius has no discernible traits. The male Jarls aren't different from each other. The Thieves Guild aren't different from each other. Neither are the Mages Guilds. They're just cardboard cutouts of leader. The Greybeards are all men. Their masculinity is that of monks. isolation and some aspect of authority, but they don't do anything at all. Ulfric presents us with strong conviction and a sense of brotherhood, but is short-sighted and has a narrow view of who falls into that brotherhood. Farkas and Vilkas are probably the best examples of what Skyrim thinks masculinity is, if I had to pick one, but that just boils down to kind-hearted, has a strong sense of justice, and does what they believe to be right. Part of the issue with trying to figure out what this game has to say about masculinity comes from just how utilitarian it is with its writing. And yes, that is an insult, but I understand why Skyrim is this way. Skyrim is The Sims for fantasy playing. NPCs go throughout their day doing little tasks, and you have agency to interrupt them. The reason why there's so little definition is the game wants the player to be the source of the action within the plot. To give the player this, everyone else has to take a back seat. What does masculinity mean to me? When I think about it, it's the time that my mother was reading me the book The Little Prince, and she got so emotional reading it that I had to finish reading it to her. But honestly, my only relationship to masculinity is the same as my relationship to America, or the church. I was born in it. I have no motion to move to another country. I've accepted agnosticism over atheism, and I don't really care either way about gender. I don't consider myself really anything, but to consider myself a gender feels a bit contradictory. I identify as someone who does not identify. It doesn't work with me. So instead, I make no moves. If I gotta opt into a gender without being assigned one prior, then maybe I would have picked something. But I heard the term gender agnostic back in 2021, and it immediately resonated with me as something I've been for as far back as I could remember. Not trying to invalidate trans experience by saying I'm gender agnostic. You've earned your gender, even if I don't understand why you'd want it. Here's the fun part. I don't need to understand it. I will say, I do remember in 2007 having a dream in which I was not male, and it wasn't some awakening, but my reaction to such thing was, alright. But also, this is a dream I've remembered for 17 years now, so I'm going to take that as you will. I'll say I've also always found myself drawn to androgynous and queer media. I mean, hell, Placebo was my first favorite band. Brian Molko is a gender icon for a lot of people, and depending on what year you would ask me, I might agree. I also love the band Suede, and Shushu is incredibly queer. But let's go back to that story. When I've told it to people, they've always referred to it as very sweet. Not trying to put you on blast, Mom, but when I look back, I don't see it that way. I was a child. I should have been the one crying to the little prince, but I did what I knew was expected of me. Not by my mother, she hadn't ever taught me that, but somehow I learned it anyways. In 2022, I found myself working at a lab that ran drug tests on urine. It was data entry, and it was a terrible job where I met some great people, but I really just wanted to quit, and I wondered to myself, how did my dad go to work doing data entry for years on end? And in that moment, I realized it's because he knew, if he didn't, our entire family would be put on the street. And since I didn't have anyone relying on me, quitting was possible. Masculinity is the assumption that you will carry on, no matter how old and tired. You will carry the troubles and sorrow. You will carry these burdens for others. You will keep moving forwards as your legs are ready to give out. What I'm saying is that masculinity is a means of control. It is a means of removing your humanity from you. I'm not saying it's wrong to be a shoulder for someone to cry on, but masculinity doesn't teach you how to cry on someone else's shoulder. I'll talk more on this topic in a later video, but I'm tired. Been for a long while now, and I don't know how to slow down because I wasn't ever told how. And yeah, I blame masculinity for that. Like the answer of the jockstrap being a male clothing item. It's why lizards have boobs. I know there's a video about Argonian boobs because YouTube put it in my recommendations and I have not, and I will not watch it. It's not the fault of Skyrim for having so little to say about masculinity. Skyrim doesn't have much to say about masculinity because the West doesn't know what it is. And this leaves Skyrim with the answer that masculinity is nothing more than form. And for femininity, form makes up about half of that. Part of the reason why is for player empowerment, but that player empowerment is without player expression. You can marry whoever as whatever gender, but before the DLC, out in the world you wouldn't encounter anyone who wasn't straight. While this game might not know anything about gender identity, Bethesda does show that they have some things to say about fascism, and how those ideas can grow within people. And they show it again with Fallout 4's Brotherhood of Steel. But while the Brotherhood of Steel is about how fascism can be arrived at through a constructed self-identity of being the saviors of the world, Skyrim is about how perceived victimization can lead to fascist ideals. People need education and material stability to resist fascism, and Skyrim shows how this hardship creates an environment that lets it take hold. If liberals ignore these problems, people will turn to leaders who acknowledge these problems they see over leaders who do nothing. To be ineffective is worse in the eyes of the public than to be harmful. This is stupid, I know. I'm doing serious academia in a semi-comedic fashion on a topic no one cares to engage with in any meaningful way during a time when people are getting disappeared by the government without due process. It feels wrong to devote my attention to this, but not any more wrong than it feels to just go to work. But right now we do need to survive. As I mentioned in the start, I just needed something to make my brain stop speeding, and Skyrim is probably better than any other substance I might choose, at least in the long run. I know I like alcohol. I like it a lot. That's why I've been avoiding it. And what a year to choose to do that! My cutting back on alcohol at this point has stopped me from consistently having the thought, I need a drink. You know, when I either at work or just getting home. Now, what instead goes through my head is, I want to. Sorry, I'm oversharing. Skyrim doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be high art. Media serves us. I mean, we should still show it respect, but we can use it for whatever we need. We can sacrifice songs to moments of extreme sadness to get us through, even if it means that song will forever be linked to that horrible emotion. We will lose art in the process of doing this, but maybe you'll get it back in a decade. And maybe you won't. Love your neighbors, build community, uphold the law when fascists bypass it, morality over legality, fuck ICE, fuck Elon, stay safe.